Good evening, everyone. My name is Shana, and most days I'm the rabbi of this lovely synagogue where we find ourselves this evening. I want to welcome you all to Congregation Ner Tamid. But since I was 6 years old, I was pretty much Carol's little sister, an additional one. And tonight we are here to celebrate her. So I'd like to ask you please and welcome to our friends online. First of all, thank you all for making this evening sacred, for doing the best kind of sacrifice, which is taking something precious and making it holy. You've all given your time this evening to celebrate a truly amazing and irreplaceable person. Darling Carol Joan Huey, who will live forever in our hearts. I'd like to ask you if you'll take a moment, maybe just to have your phones on silent. The evening is being recorded. And this is my husband, Andy. And Carol was always so kind about our music. So we will start this evening with a song called Zemer Nugeh. Carol loved our services here at Ner Tamid. She attended more of them than many of our members, which is to say really almost all of them, actually, because she didn't miss. And this is a song that's mostly in Hebrew, but a little bit in English. And it's a song about longing, written, the words originally by the great Israeli poet Rachel. And it is a song about missing someone that we loved very much. And we hope that they know that we're still here for them, always.
התשמע קולי, רחוקי שלי. התשמע קולי, בשהינך, קול קורא בעוז, קול בוכה בדמי, ומעל הזמן מצווה ברכה. התשמע קולי, רחוקי שלי. התשמע קולי, בשהינך, קול קורא בעוז, קול בוכה בדמי, ומעל הזמן מצווה ברכה. תבל זו רבה נפלאות לך, מבקש אדם, אכל שלון רגליו, לא יוכל למצוא את אשר עבד. Can you hear my voice from so far away? Can you hear my voice? In the night I pray for your sheltering peace. Let your love take flight, calling out your name from the dark of night. Can you hear my voice? התשמע קולי, רחוקי שלי.
I'm going to invite my brother Spencer to the bima dais. This is the kid, in case any of you have ever heard Carol talk about my brother. So we're just going to begin with a couple of reminiscences, and we could go on all night, but I promise we won't. I know, sorry. We met Carol in 1976. I was 6 and Spencer was 3.
2. I thought it
2 or 3 anyway, he was tiny, and Carol fell in love with him. As she was among the many teenage babysitters from George Washington High School that our parents roped into taking care of us. And there was a whole bunch of them. But Carol, after probably 1.5 evenings, quickly just became our preeminent babysitter. We would at times beg our folks to go out to dinner just so that we could have Carol come over and take care of us. It really is. I had to condense my thoughts, my stories. There are so many. I thought, okay, I'll tell a story. All right, I'll tell 2 stories. All right, I'll tell 3. All right, and then I ran out of...
Do you want me to interject when I think of something, or do you want me to wait?
Yeah.
I was going to add in that the difference between being, when you're little and the babysitter comes and your parents go and you're like, ugh, and then when Carol came, it was like, oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Suddenly, everything is okay. You could have something to eat, something to do. Going to bed is still not going to be fun, but you, again, feel like the evening is okay. Your life is okay. You're just held. It's, just the best.
She's the best. She learned all of our parents' goodnight songs, and she would sing them in her own inimitable style. If you ever heard Carol sing, it was really delightful. She didn't do it too often. But I was going to just tell a couple of little anecdotes. In 1980, Carol and Denise, the very same Denise, the other Denise, our mom is Denise. She was mom. Denise is Denise. Carol and Denise planned a 15-course Chinese meal for our parents' 20th anniversary. I was 10, Spencer was 6 or 7, because we're kind of in the half year. And how, my dad said for years and years, how 2 little kids kept a secret like that for months. That really became the start of begging mom and dad to go out because we had work to do on this party. Right. And it was months of planning, and every invitation was done with my little 10-year-old artwork and Carol's incredible swirly handwriting. You all know the handwriting. And the people that we invited, it felt like so many. I think it was 18 people ultimately, but to us it felt like so many. About that, something like that. I
think it was 50 or 60.
No, you were little. It seemed like 50 or 60. Okay. It wasn't. We fit in the dining room. It's not that big of a dining room. But it was an enormous meal, and dish after dish after dish after dish kept coming out of the kitchen. And after everything was finally over, it was a surprise party. My parents loved it. It was a wonderful evening. And when it was done, and Carol and Denise finally went home, and we live on 11th Avenue, Carol on 18th, so it was just like an extended home for all of us. The phone rang, and it was Carol calling to tell my parents that she had left a dish of egg foo young in the oven. In typical fashion, there was just so much food. And so for years and years after that, every time Carol would call the house, because people called the house, remember those days? My dad would say, "Is there still egg foo young in the oven?" And it was a joke for so many years. Number 2. In 1982, January 10th, so you sports fans will already recognize that day, Carol, who was, of course, such a huge sports fan, was at our house, and because none of us could barely stand to be with each other, my poor father was upstairs watching the game by himself, made us all too nervous to be with him. Our mom was in the dining room on a portable TV, and I think she was knitting or crocheting, so you can know how nervous she was. And yep.
Grading papers?
No, it was a Sunday. No papers. It was the game, Spencer. No papers. And in my memory anyway, Spencer and I was 12, so I'm not sure this is totally correct, but in my memory, we were both sitting on Carol's lap. And when Dwight Clark caught that ball in the end zone, the 3 of us hit the ceiling. And it was just delightful. It was so much fun. And of course, the city was rocking and rolling, and it was just a great time to be here and to be with Carol. I'm choosing from 1,000 stories, but when my friends who didn't know Carol have asked about her in the last couple of months, I said, this is what you need to know about Carol. Carol never missed a celebration. She was at every life cycle. I think there were times it felt like there were more of her than just one. It's how she made it to so many things I will never know, but she didn't miss. And thankfully, we have 8 nights of Hanukkah. So Carol never missed a Hanukkah. And at some point, whatever night it was, and sometimes it was more than one, but at least one night of the 8 nights of Hanukkah, Carol would come over and she would be made aware that a couple of our friends were coming. Fortunately, we didn't have that many friends. We went to a very small school. But there were 2 sets of siblings that were at our house a lot for things like Hanukkah. And somewhere in the afternoon, Carol would make sure to know which of our friends was going to be there that night. And a little bit young to fully process why she needed that information. But then the evening would come, and our friends would be over, and we'd light our candles for Hanukkah, and we'd have our dinner, and we'd assemble in the living room, and every single one of us, including our friends, would get a gift chosen and wrapped specially for them in that endless supply of peanuts wrapping paper that she just seemed to have. And everyone would get this wonderful gift that she'd gotten probably that afternoon. And it was just perfect. And everyone was so happy. And we'd open our gifts. And it was just so special from Carol. Like, this was my birthday gift this year. And I have hardly taken it off. And then everyone would be so happy with their gifts. And there'd be about a 3-second pause. And Carol would say, something else. Perfectly chosen and wrapped for each one of us. And to me, that's just the essence of Carol. It was just such fun to be with her, and something wonderful always came out of a goodie bag. And if it wasn't a thing, and it so often was, but it was also an experience, it was a joke, it was just an old Brady Bunch rerun, it was macaroni and cheese, it was more things than I could begin to name. But round 2, Carol, and how we wanted so many more rounds with you, but God bless you. A story?
Well,
tell one or two because we had a lot of people waiting to go on.
Oh, sure. My sister is smaller than I am, so well, can I move this?
Yes, you can.
Get a little bit. You make me feel tall.
So did Carol.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know I was going to say anything. I saw the email. Well, I was like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to come up anyway. So I didn't prepare anything. So I will just speak from my heart for a moment and say that to have someone like Carol in your life is a blessing. To feel that someone was 100% in your corner all the day, every day, from the moment, whatever it was, 2 or 3, whatever. And then here's the thing. I'm 50, how old am I? 52. So to have someone. So I count 3 people, aside from my parents and my sister. Aside from biological, immediate family, I count 3 parental type influences. When people ask me, why, you're a good dad. And I was like, well, we lived with our grandma in the house, our dad's dad. And that was a huge blessing and a huge influence, right? But, she passed away when we were 16, I was 16. So, it has a certain number of years. And then the other person was Inga Gregory. Some of you knew Inga Gregory, the Gregory family. But I was very little, and she babysat. I would spend like half the day with her, and I was a huge influence. So I think of my grandma a lot, and I think of Mrs. Gregory a lot. And then the other person who has influenced me just as a human being and as a father is Carol. And there's so many things that I do every day that are like, it's not literal. I don't think, oh, what would Carol do? It's just automatic. It's a certain fun and an acceptance and sometimes just simplicity and joy, letting things go, and just, loyalty to the person who's there and being fully present. And, not perfect about it, but I realize that Carol is with me. And it always has been. Ever since she came to babysit, she never stopped babysitting and loving and being present. Whatever you do as a babysitter, you sit for someone, you sit with them. if they're hungry, you get them some food or you help them figure, if it's story time, it's also when to stop watching TV. I mean, Elliot's right here, my son, and has to finish TV. And I was like, I'm your father. I was like, oh, come on, kid, let's do something else. And I, referred to him as kid. It's just like a simple way of moving on with life. I can just say a couple things. When the doorbell would ring and kind of small, right? So I think I would get a chair maybe just for the fun. I knew it was Carol, but I'd get the chair and I'd look in the peephole and say, who is it? And you hear the Snoopy, and just for that moment. I mean, it's like just. I mean, between I could say more and more, but I know other people will say things. If anyone wants to talk about Carol, from now until the end of time, you just call me. I'll give you my number, and we can share stories. Thanks for being here. It's love. So many friends who are part of our family. I won't name names, but you know who you are. Just that we know you and love you, and we're family through Carol, or related through Carol. We share a love for that wonderful person.
Thank you,
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Let me off the stage.
No, get the hook. I've quoted my brother a lot the last couple months because I'd never thought about our relationship in these terms. But Spencer said, right after Carol passed, he said, we were like a wolf pack. We were like imprinted on each other. And when you have such a small family like ours, that's just beyond priceless. So a lot of members of Carol's wolf pack are here tonight, and some of them have worked beyond lovingly. I won't say hard. It's tough, but with such love and joy for this evening. And so let me just give you a little schema of where we're going. We're going to hear from Helen, and then John, and then Vanetta, and then Dawn. Then we'll have a very brief musical interlude, and then Denise will read something from Rose. Denise will share, then Katherine, and then Annie. We'll have a brief prayer and a closing song. So you kind of know where we're going. And that means that Helen is up next.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Denise, Annie, and myself want to thank each and every one of you for coming here tonight to celebrate Carol's life. And she's given us priceless moments. Am I too loud? No, it's okay. All right. There. She's giving us priceless moments, and she's given a lot to the community. She participated in many fundraisers, and I know every time we go to a Giants game, she would buy at least 2 grab bags. Not for herself, but for the proceeds. She knew the proceeds would go to the Giants community. And on that note, I think that all of us should enjoy the quest of establishing the Carol Joan Huey Scholarship Fund. And that's going to the George Washington High School Alumni Association. And it's also a tax-exempt organization. So every donation you make is a charitable donation. Okay. I also want to thank each and every one of you who work on this celebration of life. It's a lot of work, big production, but we made it. And I especially want to thank the team of the greeters, led by Carol's 5 godchildren, goddaughter Katherine, John Allen, goddaughter Kimberly. Her husband is watching Camden. That's Carol's grand godson, Jonathan, godson, Audrey, goddaughter Janine, godson T, and Dina. Did I miss anybody else? Okay. Now to talk about how Carol bonded with clients. In my days at the H&R Block, we didn't have cubicles, we didn't have offices. But I noticed that a client would come in and the client would be shaky. But Carol, with her personality, her eye contact, and infectious smile, she broke down the barrier, she calmed the client down, and the client was willing to disclose the financial background, a snapshot. And you see how Carol worked. She made that person at ease, and she did a finished product, and all she wanted was to hear the gratification, thank you. And that's what she did. And I know there are some of the clients who've known her for at least 30 years, maybe 40 years, and they bonded over cookies and tea, lunch, dinner, even shows. And some of you are here tonight, and I thank you for coming tonight. It's a blessing. Getting back to the donation, there were several letters that I received that people out there donated, and I had one person donated within 93 minutes of receiving the email that was written by my precious goddaughter, Leilani Miller. But she went on the computer and she donated X amount of dollar, and her employer matched that. That's going to George Washington High School Alumni Association. Several other people wrote checks on the same day they received the email. Now, this letter that I'm going to read to you, it echoes our sentiment for establishing the Carol Joan Huey Scholarship Fund. Helen, please find attach a donation check in the amount of X amount for the Carol Joan Huey Scholarship Fund in honor of Carol. This contribution comes from two families who wish to honor Carol's memory and the impact she made in the lives of those who knew her. That is true. We pray that Carol's legacy continues to inspire and support others through the scholarship fund, and we hope our donation helps in continuing the wonderful work being done in her name. Thank you for keeping Carol's spirit alive through this meaningful initiative. With warm regards. So we made the right decision in having all donations to establish the Carol Joan Huey Scholarship Fund, and all proceeds will go to George Washington High School Alumni Association. The toughest phone calls that I had to make was to notify some clients who were not aware about the passing of Carol. The call started on a somber note, but each of you share a story about Carol, the finest moments you had with her, and that lifted me up until I went to the next phone call, and so forth. For some of you, I had to write letters, and one married couple brought the letter, came to my house, knocked on the door, and Richie had to get me. And the couple said, "We're sorry about Carol, but we want you to do our taxes." "No, not here. I'm retired. I'm sorry, I can't do it." And they wouldn't leave. They were adamant. So I said, "I tell you what, the next best thing is, you see that second paragraph? I'm giving you a referral. You go call them." "No, you call them for me." So I called the referral. I said, "Look, I have this couple. You got to speak Cantonese and make an appointment, okay? I don't want them staying at my place." So the referral said, "Okay, I will do you." And then the couple was happy, and for a moment, I thought I was talking to Carol because the guy was so persuasive, I almost unretired. But I said, no, I can't do that. If I did his return, then it's a dishonor to other people that I turned down, and I think I turned down about 10 people. So I didn't do him, and I said, look, go to the referral. He will take care of you. You're in good hands. And that's the thing about Carol Huey that I know, is that when she talked with a client, she did the taxes, you're in great hands with her. You were in great hands with her. And She's very persuasive, and I'm glad to know her for 37 years. She's my tax associate, my buddy, my sister. I will miss her immensely. Her presence is embedded in my place. Each time I look to the left of the recliner, I think of CJ. Or I look at Snoopy in a glass display case, I think of Carol. Or I open the freezer door and look at the ice tray, I think of Carol. So on that note, I thank all of you for listening. Godspeed.
Thank you. We'll next hear from John. I don't know how many hundreds upon hundreds of airport trips Carol made for our family, but Carol was the kind of person that you felt like you were the center of the world when you were with her, and I feel that already by talking to all of you. John, thank you so much.
Well, a lot of you here know me. I'm John Nardi, and Carol worked for me for roughly 15 years. It just seems like it's a few short years ago that we had her retirement celebration at the Cliff House, 6 short years ago. And here we are tonight, we're having her celebration of life. Shortly after she retired, she had called me and told me that she was having some health challenges. And I was thinking to myself, well, I hope that these health challenges do not affect her retirement plans. Well, guess what? They didn't at all. I mean, she did everything that she set out to do in retirement. She took vacations. She went to Hawaii. We would go down to Los Angeles all the time to visit her friends. Her social calendar was always full. She kept up her tax business. She continued working as a volunteer for Washington High School, and she continued to make her delicious cookies. I don't know how many of you ate her cookies, but they were really good. We continued to get together on a regular basis for lunch and dinner, and of course, she never missed any of our retirees' lunches, which are once a quarter. I first met Carol in the early 1980s at State Compensation Insurance Fund. We didn't work in the same department at that time, but I would see her all the time in passing. We'd stop, we'd chat, and if you know Carol, she was a very, very easy person to talk to. She knew everybody, and she'd always give you time as if you were the only person at that point in time that was important to her. I went to go work in credit and collections in 1996, and that's the department that Carol was working in at the time. She was working in the credit investigation and bankruptcy unit. One of the first jobs I had when I got there was to fill what we called an associate management analyst position. I interviewed half a dozen people. One of the people I interviewed was Carol. So guess who I hired? I hired Carol Huey. And that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made at State Fund, was hiring Carol. She was great. She was just, I don't know how to explain Carol, but she was unique. And one of the first things she did is she gave me my name, which wasn't John, it was Boss. So that's what I became. I became Boss. From there on, she would call me Boss. And while on paper, I was her boss, her supervisor, but really it was the other way around. She was the one that was the boss. And but she would always, she'd have a way. She was skilled at getting what she wanted. And, while tact may not have been her greatest asset, she could get right to the point and tell you the way things were. One of Carol's strengths were ability to organize. And when I say organize, I'm talking about organizing parties. And in credit and collections, what was called back then, it was known as the party department. You name it, retirement parties, birthday parties, anniversary parties, Christmas parties. It was always a party in credit and collections. And with parties, there was always food. And Carol would be the one organizing the menu and telling all of her, what I call assistants, what to bring and what to do. And basically the assistants were her coworkers. Carol had connections to different people in different departments. And when something needed to get done, I would immediately ask her for her assistance because she would know the right people to talk to get things done. One of the areas that Carol had friends in was in marketing. Now, marketing was a department in home office that provided the districts with all of their promotional items. And by promotional items, I mean rulers, calculators, pens, pencils with state fund written on them. Now, to Carol, they were not promotional items, they were goodies. That was her word there, goodies. And Carol was in charge of all the goodies in the department, and she would have a special closet where she would keep the goodies. And she was the only one that had a key to that closet. and it was kind of like, okay, well, if you were on her good side, you would get some of these goodies. But if you weren't, you were SOL. You weren't going to get anything. One of the work projects that Carol really enjoyed was our quarterly visits to our backup bank remittance site down in Riverside. This was one of the things that she would get all revved up about. Every quarter was going down to Riverside. We had a backup site there where we processed our checks. So she would get all the checks ready. She'd organize everything. We'd fly down there, and when we got there, the thing that she would do right away is organize. Okay, where are we going to dinner? Where are we going to go after dinner? And which ones of her friends were going to join us for dinner that were down south? And sometimes she would get so excited to the point that I'd have to tell Carol, you need to calm down because her blood pressure would go right through the roof. In 2007, Credit and Collections moved to Pleasanton. And Carol was actively involved in that move also to go to Pleasanton. We would spend 3 years commuting together every day in the car. I would pick her up at the Parker Ride in San Mateo, and we drive over, and our conversations would kind of go, well, we talk about family, we talk about work, and the work was mostly all complaints. Carol, she'd always have something to say about work. Sometimes she would go to sleep, and sometimes she'd be hanging on for dear life because of my driving. But that was Carol, and those were the best 3 years that I ever had with her driving back and forth to Pleasanton. She finally decided that she had enough of the commute to Pleasanton and decided to come back to home office. And she transferred back to San Francisco Legal, which was right across the street from the home office building there on Market Street and the Fox Plaza building. I went ahead, I retired about a year after that, but at that point I decided to ask Carol, well, Carol, would you like to start playing bocce ball? And she said, sure, boss, why not? I'll play bocce ball. So I asked her to come to the first bocce ball tournament, and right away she asked me, well, how can I help? I said, okay, you want to go pick up the donuts on the first day? And she said, okay, I'll pick up the donuts for you. So I would normally get to the bocce ball courts about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I had told her, well, just show up about 8 o'clock in the morning. That'll be fine. I drive into the parking lot that morning, and there's already a car in the parking lot. And I'm looking, and it was Carol. So she was already there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and she got out of the car and said, what took you so long? Well, I didn't tell you had to come at 7 o'clock. I told you to come at 8. So that was kind of the start of the whole bocce ball tournament with Carol. And what eventually happened is that she got more and more involved in what we were doing there. And she would go ahead and check the people in. She'd help us with the breakfast. She'd help us with the lunches. But the most important thing that she did with us is that she just sold raffle tickets for us. Now, all of you know Carol and how persuasive she is. And she could sell raffle tickets to anybody. And we never sold as many raffle tickets as when Carol started doing it. It was amazing. She could charm anybody. She could sell the raffle tickets to anybody. One other thing, and I was going to touch on this just briefly, was Carol's desk. Most of you know that worked in credit and collections, that Carol's desk was not a neat desk. There was papers all over the top, so you couldn't even see the surface of her desk. And I occasionally tell her, you know, Carol, you really need to clean up your desk a little bit. And she says, sure, boss, I got it under control. Don't worry about it. That was her other term that she liked to say, I've got things under control. And I'd say, okay. And so we went through a couple of remodels and moves when I was in credit collection. So every time that would happen, I'd tell Carol, okay, Carol, you got to take everything out of your desk, off of your desk, and put it in boxes. Fine, she would do that. But the problem is that afterwards, she would never take that stuff out of the boxes again. That stuff would be forgotten about. That would go into boxes, and these boxes would disappear. Well, okay, what happened to all these boxes? So finally, when we decided to move to Pleasanton, I had everybody box up all their stuff, and everybody had maybe 3 or 4 boxes in front of their desk. Well, Carol had about 20 boxes. I said, Carol, are you going to bring all these boxes with you? Boss, I have to. Okay. So all the boxes went to Pleasanton. Once they got to Pleasanton, they sat there. I don't know what she did with them, but they all disappeared somewhere in the department. Once she left and came back to home office, at a certain point in time, we started finding these boxes hidden in different parts of the department. A box here, a box there. And a couple of the boxes were all filled with the state fund goodies that she never distributed. So Carol was a unique person, and I enjoyed working with her very much. She was enthusiastic. She was persuasive. And you know, Carol put 100% into everything that she did. So Carol, may God bless you, and may you rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, boss. Yeah. I mean, you know, Carol's effect on multiple generations was very obvious in many of our families, especially when I realized the effect she was having on my own kids. Because when they were tiny, and as soon as they were really aware, and we did a lot of drives from LA to San Francisco, as soon as we would pass Harris Ranch, I'd hear these little voices in the back saying, Mommy, when will we see Auntie Carol? It's like, that's what they wanted to do first thing when they got to San Francisco. Everything else was a little bit secondary, but when will we see Auntie Carol? Because they knew she was such a good time. We're going to hear next from Vanetta. Where are you, Vanetta? There she is. Beautiful.
Good evening. My name is Vanetta. Carol and I worked together at State Compensation Insurance Fund for many years in credit and collections. John was our boss. Those Riverside trips I was a part of, we had some good times because Carol would organize everything and we were taken care of. So, Carol, you know, sometimes when you're born, you know, you don't get to pick and choose your family. You're just born into it. But with your work family, you get to choose who your family. So Carol was my sister. And when I say my sister, she was my sister not by blood, but by love. So she definitely was my sister. There was a few of us, Eva, Peggy, Amina, Nellie. It was a bunch of us. We all hung out together, and we had a really good time with each other. Carol and I would go traveling. We always went to Vegas. I have to go pull her off the tables. I just wanted to go to Vegas to go eat and go shopping, but Carol wanted to go to the table, so I'd be like, okay, Carol, I'm gonna go to the room. She was like, okay, I'll be there. I would go and check. She was still down. I was like, oh, let me go get her. So when I was there, she was like, oh, okay. She's like, you're bad luck, Vanetta. She was like, I was doing good till you came down. I was like, because it's time for you to go to your room. She was like, okay. So she and I, we were traveling buddies. I love Carol so much. I think about our last visit, Moy, Veronica, when we all went out to eat with Myrna and Paul. We have good times together. She was the life of the party. Carol was a party wherever she went. You know, I loved, like John said, the cookies. I loved her cookies as well. She'd bring me cookies and brownies, and she'd tell me, now fry me some chicken, make me some macaroni and cheese. I was like, okay. She was like, yeah, we're going to swap. I was like, okay. She was like, don't forget. I was like, okay, Carol. So I just want to say, some family you're born into, and some you find along the way. And let me tell you, the ones you find, they're the hardest to let go. And Carol was very hard to let go. And I'm going to miss her. I know each one of you will too, but she's forever in my heart. She's imprinted in my heart. And anything and everything I do sometimes, I always think of her. So I just want to say thank you, Moy, and all the Huey family for sharing her with us. She was definitely a joy. Thank you.
So much of the time when it was Carol, it was also Veronica. And when I started commuting to San Francisco 8.5 years ago, Carol just said, well, I'll pick you up from the airport every week. Don't even think about it. I'll be there, right? Don't worry, I'll be there. But it wasn't just Carol. It was Carol and Veronica. Girls helped me so much. And the Lyft driver's just not the same. But I'm so grateful that we had that time. Don, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, my name is Don Knudsen, and I actually live in Southern California. So I had a little bit of a disadvantage of not seeing Carol every day. I work for State Fund also. I still do even. In January of '96, I became a manager, which meant I had employees working under me. And Carol and Sharon Albera, they ran a credit and collection class. Now, I heard about this class, and a lot of people came back with pretty positive reviews. So I started sending my people there. And they came back like, this is the greatest thing in the world. Now, these were mostly technicians or beginning people, a lot of young people. So I figured it out. I'm going to find out what this is about. So I signed up. Probably the only manager in the history of State Fund who was signed up for a technician's class. It was held over here in San Bruno. So we fly up. I take the class. Now, you have to go back in time. The young people aren't going to understand this, but a lot of us will. This is before cell phones. This is before really emails. There was a time, kids, where you had to actually call people on real phones. And that's really the only way I knew her. So I show up for this class, and I remember the first night we went to a restaurant called Bongustos, all right? And Carol found her way to sit next to me. Now, I didn't know really her from Man in the Moon, but she was going to find out why I was there. Why am I here to check up on them? I really wasn't check up on anything. Well, she found out how old I am. I'm only 1 year younger than her. So the next question was, did you watch The Partridge Family when you were a kid? Well, yeah, that was a hit show of 1970. Who didn't watch The Partridge Family? Then we had to go over every episode of The Brady Bunch. I gotta admit to you, a little bit I can remember, but I wasn't a big Brady Bunch fan. But I swear to God, she has seen every episode and knew them by heart. Then she asked me if I ever been to Disneyland. Well, Carol, I'm gonna beat you on that one. I grew up in Anaheim, and we lived so close to Disneyland, we walked over there. That's how close I lived to Disneyland. It was only across the street. All right. Then she found out I have Disneyland annual pass. And I had a 4-year-old at the time. I only had one child at the time. He was 4. So next thing out of Carol's mouth is, next time I'm down, we're going. Now, I only met this lady like this night. So you wait a couple months, I get the call, okay, I'll be there this weekend, we're going on Saturday. Well, here we are, I'm picking her up from John Wayne Airport, along with my 4-year-old son, who doesn't know her from Man in the Moon either. So we get to Disneyland, and I swear to gosh, by the 3rd ride, he won't go with me anymore. He has to go on every ride with her. Because you know, most of those rides, it's 2. I'm now going solo on every ride because she has stolen my 4-year-old. So that was really, getting to know. Then in 2001, I'm going to skip a lot of stuff because, time is of the essence. They opened California Adventure. And T, I know it was T. I don't know which one of you is T because it's been, all right, you remember that day? Okay. Since we were annual pass holders, they were able to give us some pre-opening passes to California Adventure. And we had extras because I think we had 8 and my family was only 4 at the time. So I had a couple extra. I invited Carol and she brought tea down and you were just a little guy, okay? Carol had more fun at California Adventure than any of the kids that went. This was just incredible with her. She just had the grandest of times and such. And then the other big attraction in Orange County, Knott's Berry Farm. I cannot tell you, well, first off, I really never went to Knott's much as a kid because we had Disneyland across the street, okay? But they have the fried chicken dinner place. I cannot tell you how many times I've been to that in the last 30 years because every time she comes to Southern California, I get a call in which, okay, we gotta go have Mrs. Knott's fried chicken dinner deal. There were times where if I wasn't available, she just took my kids. That's fine with me, feed them up. My kids are big, they'll eat too. So, it was just a fabulous way that she treated people. And then one time, Carol found out I like John Grisham books. The mystery writer? And he's written maybe 50 books. I bought about the first 10. Everyone after that, I get in the mail. Now, how she gets these before they're published, I have no idea. But she's got connections. And that was one other thing, too, about state fund. If my phone rang and it's her, it was always in whispers. She knew something. Not just once in a while, this was all the time. She knew who was being promoted. She knew who's being transferred. She knew who's retiring. She knew this. She knew that. I go, how do you know this? I have connections. Who are the connections? My friends. It's either her friends or the Chinese mafia. One of the two. I have no idea who these people are. She wouldn't give up a name for the life of her. But a week later, here's the announcement. Billy Bob got promoted. I knew that for a week. Because Carol knew. Okay, then the pandemic hit. And if you guys remember, everything got canceled. Cruises got canceled. All kinds of trips got canceled. So my family decided, and now we're all big now. Now they're all in their 20s. They got boyfriends and girlfriends and everything else. We're going to take a tour of California. So with 2 cars, 8 of us traveled around the state. But when we hit San Francisco, Carol decided she was going to give us a tour. Now, my kids are a little worldly, they're college graduates, they've been places, but they never went on a tour like that with Carol. We started on Market Street with a drunk standing in the middle of the street, singing to us, and Carol, she was in one car and we had everybody else on cell phone in the other car. Carol telling, that's just completely normal in San Francisco, that people sing in the streets. And then eventually we made our way through Chinatown, where, poultry is hanging in the windows, which, we don't have that in Yorba Linda. I gotta admit to you. So it was just a day my kids will never forget because it was so hilarious and such. And I'm gonna miss her dearly. I talk to her twice a day, relatively, on work days, 8:30 and 3:45. My phone would ring and it would be her telling me either to get to work or it's time to log off. Pretty much every day. And that is truly missed, and she's, and a lot of things, boss over there said are just so true. She really deserved a much longer life, but my gosh, she really lived a very good one. So, thank you, my friends.
Carol loved her Disneyland. Thank you, Dawn. I find that story about Brady Bunch just spectacular. Spencer, do you remember? We made a chart. Carol babysat us so often. We actually had a chart of all of the Brady Bunch episodes divided by the character that was the most important character of that episode. And we would have debates, passionate debates over which character should be credited with this episode versus another one. She just never tired of that. So much fun. We could make up all our own games, and we did so much of the time. We're gonna just put a little pause to sing a song that Carol always liked. She'd come on Friday night, every Friday night when the pandemic started, and we had to pivot to doing Sabbath services on YouTube. And Carol's signature greeting was, "Hi, everybody, happy Friday." And she loved this prayer of protection. I
Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. Behamidenu Malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
Denise, will you come and share some words from Rose and then your own?
Excuse me. I'm going to mess up poor Rabbi Shana. I'm going to do mine first. Totally fine. So my name is Denise. Okay. Carol and I met in elementary school. We became best friends in junior high school because we had 6 out of 7 classes together. Although many people didn't realize it, I was very introverted. Without saying anything, Carol accepted me just as is. I never felt that I had to be anything else but me around her. Understanding and accepting each other and our families created an extremely loyal friendship between us. Carol was like a lifetime mentor to me. Starting in junior high, we hung out together. I watched how she took care of many household tasks. We took laundry to the laundromat, did grocery shopping for the family, watched her cook with her grandmother, babysit, just to name a few things. In high school, she began to take on more tasks, and I watched her solve problems by asking questions and thinking about alternatives. I was amazed at how many goals she accomplished and figured out things. Then we started working, had disposable income. So she taught me how to hunt. We would shop for bargains everywhere. Back then, outlets were true outlets with very low prices, and sales were not an everyday occurrence. She taught me the retail cycles. She knew which week of which month and which day of the week to wait for the 50 to 75% off the clearance prices. The really fun part of her knowing how to ask the right questions is that she would get all these freebies and discounts, and then finding out that her receipt has even more surprise discounts. She seemed to know how to talk to every single salesperson. So, and of course, when she finds all these discounts, she's like, oh, I know who to give this to. Oh, I know how to give this to someone. So she was always looking for gifts for people. At work, I was fortunate to work in the same department as her, and even the same unit. So, of course, if you've heard, she has the gift of connecting people. She introduced and connected me with so many different people in so many different departments. The connections that she helped me make allowed me to accomplish a lot of tasks in a shorter amount of time and gain valuable information and understanding the system. So we took trips together and explored the world. She would plan our trips to see tourist attractions while also finding local customs, historical customs, and discovering all kinds of food. Of course, one of those trips was Disney-themed. She planned our first cruise, a Disney cruise with extra days at Disney World. And we had our last trip together just in September to Aulani in Hawaii. Carol, of course, liked celebrating everybody's milestones, and she had treated me to many fine dining experiences. Carol loved to celebrate with as many people as the event would accommodate. Watching how she planned out the details and plenty of food was amazing. Carol had the gift of hospitality. She always made everyone feel welcome and ensured that they were having fun. In the Bible, there's a verse from the book called Proverbs 27, verse 9, oil and perfume make the heart glad, and a person's advice is sweet to a friend. So Carol, she lived her life on her own terms, and I'm truly blessed that she let me experience it with her. So I'm switching gears now. Rose Tice, she couldn't be here today with us, but she wanted to share a few thoughts. Rose worked with us in home office, and she sat right in between. Carol was here, and I was here, and Rose was there. So here's what she has to say. We're here today to talk about our friend Carol Huey. Carol was my friend, and I was her pal. Carol gave us some nicknames. And once we had them, that was all she ever called us. So as you heard, John was boss, Arlene Cariola was chickie, and I was pal. Every phone conversation, she never said hello. It was always pal. And she didn't just say pal with a period. It was always with a question mark. Kind of like those gentle parenting people who would say to their kids, Junior, why are there pop rocks in the aquarium? It was enduring, and I take pride in being her pal. Carol was a first-class organizer. Oh, wait, a vision of her desk just flashed through my mind when I said organizer. Her desk looked like someone had targeted it with one of those high-power leaf blowers. Better word choice would be she was a first-class event planner. No one could throw a party or plan a class or trip quite like Carol. If you were retiring, having a landmark birthday, celebrating an anniversary, whatever, you wanted Carol to plan your party. There was always laughter, great gifts, and enough food to feed a small army. On several occasions, she and Veronica came to my house for a holiday party. When I knew she was coming for sure, I would cut back on the amount of food I was supplying for the party. Carol would sweep in carrying armloads of pork buns, all kinds of Chinese food, and my personal weakness was those wonderful almond coconut breakfast pastries. She had a big personality and an even bigger heart. Those of us who were lucky enough to call her friend will always remember her with love and smile on our faces. Thank you.
You had to be careful to tell Carol that you liked something, because then she'd go get it for you. Be very judicious. I made the mistake of telling her how much I loved this chocolate banana croissant she brought for me once. Oh my gosh. Bless her heart. Ruined me. Wonderful lady. We're going to hear from Katherine and then from Annie. And if there are just maybe one or two people who would like to share who are not on the program, we have a few minutes for that, but just a couple. So if anyone else would like to speak, maybe you can get a message up here somehow, okay? Okay. But let's go, please, to Katherine. Where are you, honey? There you are. Okay. Beautiful lady.
Thank you. On behalf of Carol's godchildren, thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate the colorful life of an amazing woman. In Chinese, godmother is referred to as Kai Ma. Carol was a loving, caring, and doting Kai Ma to 5 godchildren, Katherine, me, Kimberly, Jonathan, Tipian T, and Janine. When I looked up the definition of a godmother, there were many, but one that I will pull together for all of you is a person who stands as a spiritual guide and mentor, who offers support and a sense of community, who shares a special relationship with the child, and in a more magical sense, a fairy godmother is a magical figure who helps one achieve their goals. Kaima was magical. Growing up, she was that parent, that third parent for me and my siblings. She was present at every event, and I mean every event. From piano recitals to swim meets, graduations, holidays, and birthdays, and once over 21 with tequila shots. What's great about Kaima, though, she not only doted on us, she spoiled everyone around her. I remember one Christmas when she had these huge plastic bins decorated with our names and filled with treats and goodies. But she didn't just make one for each of her godchildren. She also made one for each of my cousins. She would come by every holiday with her famous dishes like baked lasagna, Amish beans, her famous spinach dip, not only to share with us, but to share with our whole extended family. And speaking of family, Veronica, or even called Veronica Jeje at times, was always by Kaima's side. Where Kaima went, Veronica was usually there too as her right-hand person. They were a super team. But going back to how Kaima spoiled all of us rotten, I recall her taking us to Asian markets and telling us to fill our baskets with all the goodies our parents would never allow us to get. She even took me to my first nail salon, and boy, was my mother angry. She took us to our first concerts like the Backstreet Boys for all you 90 kids out there, countless of Giants games through the good decades and bad, always making sure we stopped by Auntie Helen and Uncle Richie's season holder seats to catch up and take pictures, cheering on our favorite local baseball team with hot dogs and malt shakes. One of my favorite memories will always be the long road trips we took to Southern California to visit one of her favorite places on earth, which you've already heard, but Disneyland. She always got to be the passenger princess and sat up front with our dad, who was a designated driver. Since he was the driver, he called the shots on the music, which, if you know my dad, consists of homemade CD playlists that cover all the scores from the Lord of the Ring movies, and that epic credit song from Backdraft. This playlist drove Kaima insane, which always gave us a really good laugh. She used to always turn her head towards the rest of the vehicle to talk to my mom, who she called Lee, shouting in my dad's ear the entire time for 7+ hours as we drove down the state. And once we got there, my mom and Kaima would just shop till they dropped while we rode rides to our heart's content. She loved her godchildren, but she also loved her friends, and so many of you are here tonight, so thank you. One of Kaima's superpowers was being a connector, the glue that would create community amongst strangers. I know so many of your faces and your names because she was so great at melding her worlds and making us all friends. Her famous cookie parties, where my sister even asked for an adobo recipe from Albert, more intimate cookie parties with the ladies, with Auntie Margie, Zoe, Auntie Dee, Janine, going to Lady Gaga concert with Becky, my sister and I embarrassed by the older ladies doing the loud singing, dancing, and clapping. And she sure did have a loud clap, as many of you probably know. Her 40th anniversary retirement party, we got to see so many of you dressed in your best, and boy, did we treat our Carol like the queen and royalty she's always been. She lived life to the fullest, a true force to be reckoned with. But as life goes, not everything is sunshine and rainbows. As we get older, we face more and more complications. Thank you to everyone who was there for her during times she needed medical attention, physical support, and even just an ear to listen. It's been a long road, and she hid it well under her glorious smile, fashionably brilliant rhinestone shirts, and impeccable red nails. I just hope she's at peace now, still amazingly styled, winning those around her with what she used to call her charming personality, indulging in her favorites like extra crispy hash browns, reading her romance novels, spending quality time with Princess, endless shopping sprees, and always being in the know on the latest gossip and tea. May we all continue Kaima's legacy through love, laughter, family, friendship, and most importantly, making sure to live life to the fullest. Kaima, you be so happy and proud of all of us tonight. Your loved ones are together and celebrating you. Cheers.
Annie.
Hi. I can't compete with everybody's wonderful messages, but this one is from the heart, not as humorous, but it's a letter for Carol. The last time I really wrote to you, Carol, was when you went on your 3-week whirlwind European tour in your 20s. When you and I departed in a huff, I promised that whatever your destination point was, you'll receive a letter from me, which you scoffed at me in disbelief. True to my words, you did receive them all. Today, I am writing to you another lengthy letter for you to hear on your celebration of life. So where shall I begin? Carol, I want to thank God for implanting a couch in our family life class at George Washington High School. That's where you and I met, on a couch with a couple of girl students while the rest of the class were boy students. You shyly introduced yourself to me, and that's where it all began, our bond of long-lasting friendship. During our teenage years in high school, you gave me the nickname of Lee. You taught me to be competitive by joining afternoon sports. You showed me how to be courageous by getting my first paying babysitting job and sign up for my first paid part-time summer job at our high school career day. You led me to be brave to speak out to our high school student body and to go for it to join one of the high school's prestigious society. You opened up your private world, introducing me to your family and friends. In our terrific 20s, you, Dee, and I did our first international travel student exchange in Taiwan. You walked with me at our City College of San Francisco graduation. You went through the headache of being our wedding coordinator and later became godmother, also known as a kaima to Katherine. Most memorable was you came to my rescue after having no money to pay for my despicable haircut. You comforted me while I was bawling and tried your best to cheer me up by taking me to Rainbow Records and tried to make me laugh when you actually said you couldn't describe how my horrible hairdo looked like. During our 30s and 40s, our lives went by like a blur. You became godmother to our Kimberly and Jonathan, and then later to T and Janine. I want to thank you for always making Disney family trips fun. When the parade comes, you shout. When they're throwing beads, you grab them for the kids. Like everybody said, you love freebies, and we had a lot of freebies. Again, you were there when we needed help. You would drop whatever you were doing to come and aid us when unexpected emergency popped up. Carol, you provided so much moral support to our kids. You attending their swim meets, getting involved in their Halloween festivals, being there for their graduations, recitals, school events, and rescuing them when they needed you most. But then there were those days and moments you needed to be away from us, too much bonding you. Our kids once asked us, how come Kaimad hasn't come by for a while? We told them that they drove her crazy. And she needed space to get away from them. So as we moved on to our half of a century age, Carol, you went through college years with our children. You and we were so proud of our hiking to Pinnacles. It was a major physical feat you did. Even when you're beginning not to feel well, that never stopped you for continuing on to get involved, such as helping out the bocce, ball days, shopping for seniors, picking up folks from airports, taking your family on mini trips, setting up cookie parties, traveling, listening to Rabbi Shana's services, going to San Francisco Giant games with Joy Deans, Lisa, Margie, and Candace. Okay, Ma, you welcomed our, I can't read this. We welcomed our 60s by starting off with a royal happy retirement bash. You're like the Energizer Bunny as you're living life to the fullest. That's a lesson I'm trying to learn from you. I want to thank you for showing me the world, for taking me out of my shell, for your charming personality, and for being a magnet connecting all of us. When I told you I was retiring, you were so excited for me, so we can do so many things together. But God has other special plans for you. I miss you so much. Just to let you know, I miss our daily chats, like your friend with Dawn. And your latest Chinese dramas. Believe it or not, she was crazy about them. I miss hearing your infectious, loud laugh. I'll miss your goodbyes and love yous. Because you left me a part of you and me, I won't ever forget you. Love you lots. Remember when this you see, Annie, a.k.a. Lee.
So many authentic expressions of deep love. Oh my. I think we have proven tonight that there really must have been more than one Carol, because how she did all these things and was so central to so many people is just amazing. I know that Cynthia and Samantha would like to offer a couple of words. Would you guys like to come up together? I don't know where you are, I'm sorry. Yeah. Just want to share a little. Okay. Come on down. Okay. After Cynthia and Samantha, we'll have a brief prayer and a closing song, but please, please continue to share so many stories, even sitting here, more tumbling out. So please continue to share. It means so much to the family.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to follow all these stories, but hi, I'm Cynthia. I've known Carol for 37 years, and I, like many of you, have very fond memories of Carol. I met Carol working at the State Compensation Insurance Fund back in 1988. Carol was my lead in my unit and also one of my trainers going into the new department. So when I first met Carol, she intimidated me. I don't know about you guys. She scared me. She was loud, and it always seemed like she was yelling at people. But over time, I realized she just had a strong personality. That was just her, and deep down, she was just a really sweet person. So Carol and I built a pretty good friendship shortly after we met. It didn't take long for her to meet my family. She met my mom, she met my in-laws, she met my siblings. She was there when my kids were born and all through their adulthood. Carol attended a lot of our family functions too, like birthday parties, graduation, holiday dinners, weddings. She didn't have to wait for an invitation for some of these functions. Sometimes she'd just say, When's the party? Where's the party? What are we eating? So she was essentially part of our family, and my nephew and nieces and my kids all refer to her as Auntie Carol. So I look back at my memories with Carol. There's so many things that come up, but I know we don't have all night, so I'll just talk about a few. So the Giants. Most of you know that she is a huge Giants fan. So Dave and I started going to games with her in the late 80s, early 90s. And she would bring her dad, and Dave would bring his dad, and we all get together, chat, eat her peanuts, break the shells that are all over the place, eat her sandwiches. And then you hear this outburst, "Stupid!" So I think people in the field even heard her say that. She's a yeller. She's a yeller in the games. She doesn't hold back. She has no filters. If the Giants did something bad, she will say, "Stupid," right? And if they were good, they had a good play, she would be the loudest cheerer. So in the beginning, it embarrassed us, or embarrassed me, sorry. I don't know if it embarrassed my husband, but it embarrassed me. But I saw how much passion she had for the game, and it was really just part of her, and you just had to love her for it. And Carol was a real foodie, too. And she doesn't spare any expense if she wants a Michelin quality dinner or meal, but she also likes to have a vast variety of food. So whenever Carol comes over and picks me up for a gal day out, she will always think of my family and bring food for them. She'd bring dim sum or some Italian pastries, but she just doesn't come with one box. That's plenty to feed 3 or 4 people. She comes with 4, 5, 6 boxes of food. And it can't be 3 or 4 varieties. It has to be over a dozen different varieties. And this is enough to feed you for lunch and dinner for that day and a few days after. So that's how thoughtful Carol was. So stay on the subject of food. I remember one Christmas dinner, she came over to my mom's house for the meal. And my mom has this tradition of serving shark fin soup as a starter. It's illegal now, but back then it was legal. So my mom would dish out the soup, put it on the table, and when it was soup time, she'd say, "Soup time," and everybody could get their bowl of soup to start. One of our guests accidentally jiggled the bowl and spilled a little bit of the soup on the table. And you should have heard Carol, she just gasped, "Oh my God, that's like $10 worth of shark fin soup that just spilled on the table." So she knew her food, and she knew that shark fin was not cheap. Anyway, that really freaked out. That little spillage just freaked her out. And we all know how generous Carol could be. And I just want to finish up with just one little story about how her gift affected my son on one birthday. My son must have been turning 9 or 10 that year, and we had a family dinner. And after dinner, we opened gifts. So it was gift opening time, and Adam was opening Carol's gift. Started with a card. There was a really generous gift card in the gift, and he opened the box, took a tissue paper out, and he found 2 bags of Hawaiian Maui chips. He was so happy. He loves Maui chips. He said, "Yay, I got Maui chips." Then he took the rest of the tissue out and found 6 more bags of party-size Hawaiian Maui chips. And those Maui chips were his favorite gift among all the gifts that year. And it came from Auntie Carol. So Carol, we miss you, we love you. I hope my mom greeted you with a big bowl of shark fin soup.
I apologize, this is kind of repetitive because I did not compare my speech to my mom's, so it'll be kind of some of the same things. But I'm Samantha, I'm Cynthia's daughter, and Auntie Carol's one of our family friends. While Auntie Carol wasn't blood related, she always felt like she was part of our family. She saw me grow up and even held me when I was in the hospital when I was first born. And for some people, when they first meet Auntie Carol, she can seem kind of intimidating, and I guess from a young age, I could even sense this. My parents have told me, and there's also video evidence that when she would come into the door at our house, I would start to cry. Thankfully, I learned that Auntie Carol was not scary, and as I grew older, I learned how funny, how generous, and how kind she was. Whenever Auntie Carol visited my family's house, she would be sure to bring over lots of goodies for us, whether that be pastries, dim sum, or souvenirs from her latest trips. She attended graduations, supported fundraisers, and came out to family birthday dinners. And I went to Giants games with her in Disneyland. And Auntie Carol even became a part of our extended family, coming to basically every Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. And she was so generous that she would make sure to bring a tasty dish or dessert to share, but also gifts not just for myself and my brother and my family, but for all my cousins as well. And a little like Christmas poppers for everyone to enjoy. And I was always her little helper to help pass everything out. Some of my fondest memories was her annual cookie party, and you would have thought I would have gotten used to it after seeing it all the years, but I was always just in awe of how many hundreds of cookies she would make every holiday season. I would look forward to her famous thumbprint cookies and chocolate crinkles, and I appreciate that she'd often make those little Pillsbury sugar cookies with little designs on them because she knew I liked them. And at these parties, she always made sure that everyone's taken care of, plenty of food, and sometimes she would just call me into the back and say, like, hey, pass these out to everyone. And after I was done with that, she'd be like, pass these numbers out. And it was for an advent calendar for jams. So she always liked to add her own festive flair of giving out like little bell necklaces and just lots of little gifts to everyone. And people were always leaving with more than they came with. I'll miss Auntie Carol a lot. I know that her absence will definitely be felt, and I'll miss hearing her laugh, hearing her make fun of my dad, having her around for the big and small celebrations, and I really will just cherish all the memories that I've had with her, and I'm sure all of you as well. So, thank you.
Probably starting in 1979, every time my parents would go away, maybe even before then, Carol was at our house. I like to think that we were a bit of a safe harbor for her, but I think we didn't need proof tonight, but we sure got it, that she was our safe harbor. You were always cared for with Carol. I remember her telling me when I was very little that her name meant song. And I thought that was just so beautiful. I was little enough to realize that the name Carol meant song, and that seemed to be so perfect for her. She practiced my lines with me for my ACT kids acting class. She let Spencer kick popcorn on her feet when we got too big of a bucket when we were seeing Herbie the Love Bug. And she was the one who took us trick-or-treating. And so much. She was a song. She was a prayer. And the answer to so many. We don't have a formal liturgy for memorial services. We have a couple of pieces. Mostly we like to let the person's life and those who loved them make the liturgy of their lives. But this psalm is one that has been said for thousands of years, and it is considered truly the psalm of comfort. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Carol, may your spirit dwell under the wings of the holy presence as you echo in our hearts forever. I want to say a special thank you to Annie and Helen and Denise and the president of our synagogue, Charlotte Hyman. also lifelong friends. Charlotte did so much to help these incredible ladies to put this evening together, and there aren't enough words of thank you. But for everything that has been said about Carol, I think, and I thought I was listening pretty carefully, no one mentioned her love of Broadway. A little bit of music. I was surprised to learn she was a Lady Gaga fan. She said, "Oh, Shana, that's my girl." I didn't know. But Carol loved Broadway. In fact, one of the last things she did the day after the cookie party, oh my gosh, was to go with my mom to see Hamilton. It was like the 5th time. Didn't matter, and she was wiped out. But she went with my mom, and I'm so glad she did. Carol loved a Broadway show. And so we're going to close this evening with a song that I think we all feel, because having known Carol, we were all changed for good.
I'm not going to try to play this one on the guitar. I do want to say one other thing about Carol, that every time I had the pleasure of being up here or in the social hall or anywhere singing with Shana, Carol would always have her phone out taking pictures. And on a few occasions, it was made pretty clear that having your cell phone out, like on the Shabbat service or something, wasn't really the best idea. So instead of this, you could see her sort of doing this. And she would just probably be standing up here right now going, "Okay, hold on, everyone." So.
Carol loved to capture the moment. We realized tonight we should have all taken a picture of our plates, sent them to each other.
Yes. Hopefully you can hear that.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow if we let them, and we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good.
It may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made of what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever way our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Like a ship blown from its mooring by a wind off the sea, like a seed dropped by a skybird in a distant wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you,
Because I knew you,
I have been changed for good. And just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things I've done you blame me for.
but then I guess we know there's blame to share, and none of it seems to matter anymore. Like a comet pulled
ship
from
blown
orbit
from its
as it
mooring
passes a
by
sun.
a wind off the sea,
Like a stream that
like a
meets a
seed
boulder
dropped by a bird
halfway
in
through
the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I do believe I have been changed for the better.
And because I knew you,
Because I knew you. Because I knew you. I have been changed for good.
thank you and good night.